Hello, everybody. Welcome. I am Nathan Crane, founder and director of Healing Life, as well as the host and producer of Conquering Cancer, The Missing Link. I'm really excited for today's interview. And the reason being is because in my research into cancer over the past decade plus, one of the things that continuously comes up is heavy metal toxification in the body, heavy metal exposure, and its direct link to not only cancer, but to chronic inflammatory processes within the body. We talk a lot about heavy metals and detoxifying heavy metals out of your body if you have a cancer diagnosis, or if you are wanting to prevent cancer, or if you're dealing with neurological conditions, for example. We know in the literature that heavy metals, cadmium, mercury, lead, these kinds of things are carcinogenic, meaning we know that they can lead to and even cause cancer, and we're exposed to these heavy metals every single day. We're exposed to them in our cookware, we're exposed to them in our water, we're exposed to them in the various levels of work. If you're painting, for example, people who are using oil, lead-based paints, the off-gassing and VOCs that come off of certain chemicals that are inside of your home. We're just exposed to heavy metals in so many different ways that we need to, one, learn how to limit our exposure. And that's a lot of what I do, is educate and share with all of you how to reduce and limit and mitigate and even eliminate your exposure to these heavy metals. But the second part is too, that these heavy metals often stay very stuck in our tissues in our body. And so we have to find ways to get those heavy metals out of the body. And luckily, there are many ways we can get the heavy metals out of our body. There are natural solutions to get these heavy metals out of our body, to detoxify, help reduce that chronic inflammatory process, and help our bodies heal and thrive. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is one particular ingredient from nature that has a lot of research behind it that has shown to be incredibly effective at eliminating and removing heavy metals from our tissues. And that's zeolite, and a particular kind of zeolite I want to share with you today, because it's a company that I found recently. I've been testing this product for a few weeks. I've looked at the research behind it, and I absolutely love it. So I said, hey, let's get the founder and CEO of this company on here to talk with all of you about this particular product of zeolite, why it works, what's effective about it, and how can you get it and start using it. So today I'm excited to have Eddie Stone, who is the founder and CEO of Touchstone Essentials, on here with us today. Eddie, how you doing? Thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, Nathan, I'm doing great. I appreciate the chance to speak with you and your audience, and appreciate your opening comments. I work hard to really try to educate people about environmental toxins and the role they play in our health. So I appreciate what you shared with us.
Absolutely. And we're going to get into the specifics here and the science behind this as well. But I'd love for you to just connect with my audience here a little bit. I mean, you have this incredible background of being a general manager, and even before Touchstone Essentials, and co-founder of a multi-million-dollar nutritional company. You've done a ton of research into discovering and visiting vitamin manufacturers, ingredient providers, farms, et cetera, to realize that so much of what's out on the market today is actually junk, and what I would call junk supplements or junk products that are filled with additives and preservatives and additional chemicals, and sometimes even known or probable carcinogens in the products, or at the very least known endocrine disruptors. And we know endocrine disruptors can also lead to cancer and other degenerative diseases in the body. So you've been into this for quite a while, for at least a couple of decades or more, right? And you started Touchstone Essentials. Can you talk a little bit about why you started this company, and then let's get into zeolite and why you created this product?
Yeah, I will, and I appreciate the chance to share that background. So I'm, for those that care about a few details, I'm 58 years old, married with a couple of kids, and I've been involved in the supplement industry now for more than 30 years. And maybe it's similar to a lot of people, right? You find yourself on a career path that's maybe not the one you necessarily thought you were going to be on, but it's the one that you wind up being called for or called to do. And in my case, in my 20s, like a lot of people, got into my career and sort of left behind some of my exercise habits in school and being a little more thoughtful about food, right? All of a sudden you wake up one day and there's too many to-go packages of food in the back of your car, too much fast food in the back of your car, and you kind of settle into that life where it's so demanding that you wind up fueling your body out of convenience instead of really, trying to think about, food as nutrition and the roles that it plays. And so I found myself with basically developing a little high blood pressure, a little heavier than I wanted to be, took an insurance test. I actually had increased risk for type 2 diabetes. And it was sort of this wake-up call. And kind of running parallel to that, my mom kind of started out, subtly with a cough and what looked like a cold. And ultimately, over a couple year period of time, my mom's health was deteriorating. And despite our best efforts visiting numerous doctors, I live in North Carolina. We were blessed to have wonderful university hospitals here. And so we really explored every avenue we could. And she was not getting better. So it was almost like she was kind of wasting away on us. And it was really, quite disturbing. And so as I'm on my own health journey, we're trying to work with her. I started to see more and more this connection about food and nutrition. But in her case, what we ultimately discovered was she had had breast implants when she was younger, and she was having an autoimmune response, and one was actually leaking. And so she literally was toxic from the inside out. And there was nothing in the conventional environments we went to that really identified that. It wasn't till we got to a doctor that, frankly, when we ask about this doctor, people are like, oh, he's a little bit of a quack and a little bit crazy. It just turns out he was a guy that was focused on heavy metals, environmental pollutants, and the role they play in health. And so through chelation therapy, really made an impact on her. Eventually, she got the implants out. And so her health has returned, and she's still a vibrant, healthy, 80-year-old woman today. But all of these things were really sort of clarified for me how important I felt like nutrition was. And so I started out like a lot of people do, right? You go down to the local vitamin store or your grocery aisle or whatever. But, the more over my career that I've learned about supplements, and you mentioned visiting factories, right? I've gone to in Southeast Asia, through the United States, through Europe. I've gone to where not only are ingredients brought into factories, how things are processed, how those ingredients are processed, ultimately, and now here I am in the middle of the supplement industry. Ultimately, it's an industry that the deeper you look, the more disturbing it becomes. 99% of what's out there is really manufactured in a way that's not unlike what you might think of how fast food is made, where it's really stripped down to these chemical essence, but it no longer resembles any kind of natural food or necessarily a biological compound that your body can recognize. I give people a real simple example of something like vitamin C. Most people that are watching this, if they look in their cabinet where they keep their supplements and they spin it around, it says vitamin C. In parentheses, it may say ascorbic acid. It most likely says ascorbic acid, which is not vitamin C as a whole compound. It's just one piece. It's actually the outer molecule. It's not unlike, say, the eggshell to the egg. And it really requires a lot of heavy lifting and work for your body to convert that to a usable form of vitamin C. It's one reason why people take 5,000, 10,000, units to try to get something that works. And so for me, the more I learned, the less enamored I was with supplements, no matter what their price, no matter their pedigree, because they tended to have the same ingredients, whether the multivitamin was $250 a month or $5 a month from a local deep discount store. And so I began to look at the role of whole foods, and ultimately, 10 years ago, it led me to start Touchstone and focus on whole food ingredients coming from fruits, vegetables, and herbs in their whole food form, carefully harvested and protected USDA organic, so that we're presenting to the body a compound it recognizes, a compound it can use just like food. And while certainly supplements do not replace good decisions about diet and food, they can really play a role in bridging that gap between risk and what you're trying to accomplish. So It's maybe a little longer than you were looking for, but it's a subject that I believe deeply in, because I believe it's important to give people tools that are conveniently used to help improve their health.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. It's something that I teach to everybody is we've got to focus on the foundations first, and that's diet and lifestyle. It's our thinking, it's our stress reduction, it's our discovering our life purpose, having meaning to wake up towards every day. It's cleaning up our environment. It's eating, whole plant-rich, organic, vibrant foods. It's, all of these foundational pieces, but there's some wonderful things like supplementation that we can add to our toolkit. And that's, we don't want to depend 100% on supplementation or on detoxification products or things like that. But I really believe they should be part of our toolkit if our goal is to live as long and healthy and disease-free as we possibly can. One of those supplements is called Zeolite. And Zeolite is something that I think is gaining more and more attention worldwide. It's something that's been around for a long time, but a lot of the studies that have been done on it, a lot of the research I've looked into, have not only shown it to be safe in human, in vivo trials, to be incredibly safe, but incredibly effective as well at removing toxins from the body, as well as having an antioxidant effect, which we know is very important for helping to reduce the oxidization of the cells in the body, which when the cells become over-oxidized and they get damaged, and that cell damage can lead to dysfunctional cells, can lead to chronic fermented cells, which can lead to cancer, and also DNA damage, which also leads to cancer. So again, all of these things are tied in, right? So let's talk a little bit about Zeolite. How does it work? And what have you discovered about it as you've been diving down this rabbit hole?
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple things. And as you mentioned, I think there's 300 pieces plus published on PubMed about zeolites. So we know a lot about zeolites. For those that sort of think about the issues of safety and things of that nature, by using a certain type of zeolite, we use clinoptilolite, which is a sheet-like zeolite that we naturally mine. That naturally mined zeolite actually has GRAS status with the USDA, which is sort of that safety stamp of approval. So we know a lot about it in that regard. Zeolites, for those that don't know, it's a natural mineral. They grow when playa lake or salt water comes in contact with either lava or a lava ash. And there are deposits really, all around the world of this material. We harvest ours in a really pristine environment here in the United States because of a number of reasons, but the quality of the product really matters in this regard. But this crystalline structure, and in fact, if anybody makes their way to our website, they can see really, really enhanced images under a microscope of the structure. But if you look at it, it's almost like Swiss cheese in that it has holes and tunnels and channels inside this crystal structure, and their natural composition creates in the structure, in these cages, a natural negative charge. And what makes a zeolite so effective is that when it's in the body and present, when it comes in contact with things like cadmium, lead, mercury, other heavy metals that we know are dangerous, for our health, they have a positive charge. And almost like you think about how the north end and the south end of a magnet will come together, that zeolite with its negative, that heavy metal with its positive will actually snap together and bind. And what becomes really important from a human use standpoint is it's a non-essential mineral, so they don't store or stay in the body in any way, shape, form, or fashion. So it becomes this really ideal master detoxifier that you can use, and it works based upon its presence. So as it's circulating through the body, comes in contact with these pollutants that you don't want in your system, it binds, sort of assuming a normal renal function. It's out of your body in about a 4 to 6 hour period of time. And I'm unaware of any other compound in nature that can serve in that very same way, that sort of binding effect. And for us, you talked about heavy metals. People, when I talk to folks about these types of issues, they tend to think of everything being sort of atmospheric or environmental. such as the water or what's found in the soil or what we find in the air from pollutants, wildfires, whatever it may happen to be. And all of those are things that we need to be conscious of and mitigate exposure as we can. But the other side of this is there's probably 100,000 plus man-made chemicals that are never really been tested in terms of their safety, only sort of marginally, that are a part of consumer products that we bring into our home and are a part of our lives on a daily basis, whether it's just like you said, nonstick cookware, which has all kinds of troubling warning signals for the past multiple decades that human beings should not be ingesting under any circumstance. Yet, if you tested even the remotest parts of the world, 99% of the global population would test for C8, a component found in Teflon, in their body that is all those destructive things that you talked about, hormonal disruption, messes with metabolism, messes around with the DNA structure. And so it's a situation where it's no longer, hey, I feel toxic or I've had exposure, I need to do something. I believe it's got to be a part of our daily strategy because you can't live in a bubble. That's just not a thing. And so the exposure is going to continue, and we really have to take some responsibility to sort of eliminate or aid the body because the body's brilliant, quite capable of helping out with toxins. But in the modern world, the body burden is so extensive that we believe there's just a critical role for this natural mineral to be used and help manage.
Absolutely. I think that was, incredibly well said and well informed, especially in the fact that we are just so bombarded with these chemicals every day, but we can't live in fear and we can't live in a bubble. We need to take action. And that action is cleaning up our environment, stop using as many of the things stop using the Teflon cookwares and switch to stainless steel or cast iron, and, get good air purifiers and good water purifiers, and support local organic farmers as much as possible. Do as much as we can. Even doing all of that, we're still going to have some exposure, right?
Yeah,
because of the modern world we live in and all the chemicals and everything. So it's like, okay, some people ask me, well, is it even worth it? Should I even care about any of it? And the answer is yes, of course. Of course you should care about it and do everything that you can. And even knowing you're still going to have some exposure, that's where things like Zeolite can come into play to help remove that out of your body and reduce your chances, reduce your risk of having chronic degenerative disease down the road, chronic inflammation, chronic endocrine problems, hormonal problems, etc. Reduce that risk by binding to these heavy metals and getting them out of the body. So, you mentioned Zeolite, and the one that I've been using that I really like is the one from your company. You call it Pure Body Extra.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see that because my camera's kind of maybe it has to be back here by my face. Pure Body Extra. I like it because it's just a spray. You do 4 sprays 3 times a day is what it says on the bottle. I usually take it at night before bed. But I like it because of the quality and integrity that I've seen that you put behind your company into the research and into the purification and the quality of the mining process of these nanonized particles, suspended in water. There's no taste to it. It tastes like water. It's not strong. It's not, but what I've seen is that it's incredibly effective. I actually had one thing I learned about Zeolite as I was researching this more heavily is that it's actually a known antifungal. And I got in contact with some kind of fungus on my finger and on my arm. And I was using the Zeolite and I thought, you know what? I was like, I'm going to try this. So I started spraying it on a couple times a day and taking it internally. In about a week, the fungal infection went away. And I thought, you know what? That's pretty amazing. It's just one benefit. I know it's helping bind to any heavy metals in my body and removing it. But, the fact that it's antifungal too, a lot of people are dealing with fungal infections that they aren't even aware of, or maybe they are aware of. And so talk a little bit about what makes your Zeolite product maybe different or unique from any other Zeolite people can buy out there. And for those who are interested in learning more about the one that I'm using, the one we're talking about now, we'll put a link below for you to check that out. So click that link. You can check that out for yourself. And I know, Eddie, your team has put together a really great discount for our community as well. So all those details are at the link below. Everyone can check that out during or after this video. But talk a little bit about your Pure Body Extra product.
Yeah, I will. And thank you for sharing your personal story. I have to say, at this point in my career, one of those things that sort of gets you out of bed is just people's own experiences with the products, right? It doesn't, the science is great and I'm all into it, but love to see what happens when people use the products and see that maximization of their body. So in our case, we're using Zeolite, sheet like zeolite that I mentioned earlier with the grass status. And actually for ours, coming out of the ground, it's actually Prop 65 compliant. So for those that don't know, it's a California regulation about making sure it's a clean, pristine product. We have all kinds of third-party testing and verification that can be viewed on our website because sourcing matters. Unfortunately, when you find something that's successful in the supplement industry, there's a lot of people that jump into it that just try to take advantage with terms and maybe some ingredients that are ill prepared or not prepared. And so there's a lot of what I would refer to as sort of fake or phony supplements out there. So just make sure you're aware of that, particularly when it comes to synthetics or artificially manufactured zeolites. All the research is on the naturally mined product. And so that's where our focus is. But when we mine it, there's several things that we think are important for its bioavailability and enhancing the work that it does inside the body. The first thing we do is we mill it to a nano size. And the reason this is critical is when you think about toxicity, sometimes people think about the lungs, or they may even think about the bowel or the gut or even the blood. But really, where the critical side of this is at the cellular level. When you think about cadmium, lead, mercury, things like that, they're angstrom in size, and where they hide from your body system is at the cellular level. And so the challenge is, how do we get there? How do we manage that? So by milling this to a nano size, it essentially will go anywhere in your body that water goes because we trap it inside of highly purified water in this bottle, right? So when you see the zeolite, when you see it as a clear liquid, it's because it's nano size, which you cannot see, at least with the naked eye. You can under a microscope, but you then basically trap it in these water clusters. So when you spray it in your mouth, it absorbs generally in the mouth, mucously, makes its way into the bloodstream quickly, and is available now at the cellular level. And we think this is really where we've seen the success that people have. And at this point, it's millions of people that have used the product. I think we sell this in some 60 different countries. So the strategy of size is really matter. We also prep the cage. We've got a special process where we make sure that during the manufacturing, we're flooding the cage constantly with calcium, some level of magnesium, because ionic exchange is really critical here. So in that cage, there are ions, and they basically give themselves up for these heavy metals and take it inside the cage. It's called a preferred ion exchange, almost like how an antioxidant works, right? Where something gives up an electron to neutralize a free radical. These are really clear differences from what you find in the marketplace. And so I'll say with confidence, not all zeolites are created equal, but for those that are consumers, right, everything comes with an unconditional money back guarantee. We want you to have a good experience. I think we've got 20,000+ five-star reviews on the website for the company and the products. And so it's really quite unique. I believe people will find it's easy enough to use, even if you've got, for example, children that are facing heavy metal issues. We know a lot of kids with exposures to lead and other things can even impact them from a developmental standpoint. And oftentimes taste or sense of smell will really get in the way of trying to use anything healthy. Odorless and tasteless. And so for us, the delivery is equally as important to all the other prep work to make sure it gets in the body and can do the work it's supposed to do.
Speaking on the fact that one of the things I love about your product is that you get it straight from the earth. It's pure. It comes from the earth, and that's something I always recommend to people is stay away from synthetics, stay away from processed stuff as much as possible. There's in just doing a little bit of research, there's 150 synthetic zeolites that have been created so far. Synthetic. So, and they don't have to say the word synthetic when you're buying it, right? So you have to really know what you're looking at in buying, because there's so many different types that have been already created in laboratories. I'm not saying those are bad for you by any means. I don't have the research to confirm that. I'm saying anything made in a laboratory, in my personal opinion and research over the years, is not going to be as high quality and effective for you as something you're getting straight from the earth, especially if that is a pure source where you're getting it from. I mean, according to the United States Geological Survey, not only were there 150 synthetics created, but there's about 40 to 50 natural types of zeolites on the planet, right? And the one that's in this product here that we're talking about, the clinoptilite, I was looking at a review recently where they looked at a review of tons of studies that have been done on this particular zeolite. In one, not only did they find it was safe for humans and animals, completely safe, but they found out that it was incredibly effective at removing these heavy metals and toxins across the board. I mean, we're talking about cadmium, lead, mercury. We're talking about these heavy metals that cause DNA damage and endocrine disruptors. We're talking about removing these metals from the body literally by taking this supplement, and that's it. I mean, it's not like you're doing a big, multi-month long detox product where you have to fast and take all these products and supplements and things like that. It's literally water. The thing I love about this product, if you look at the back of it, it says other ingredients, pure water. You read a lot of supplements out there that say other ingredients, and you'll find 5, 6, 7, 8, synthetic or preservative type of ingredients. The only other ingredient in here, aside from the clinoptilite zeolite, is water. And I love that, because you literally are taking this pure source from the earth, binded with water into your body, and you're basically allowing your body to interact with this zeolite, or the zeolite to interact with your body to bind to these heavy metals and pull them out. And there's nothing else you really have to do in that regard. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. And so it's really simple in that regard. It's interesting you bring up that subject matter about the synthetics, right? So that I have concerns like you do, not only about environment, sustainability, and other issues. Most of the synthetic zeolites that are manufactured are for industrial uses, such as automobile tires, because they help to diffuse heat. Most of these supplement manufacturers out there making synthetics, they just repurpose product made for automobile tires, right? So it's got to be a wise consumer and think about these things. But the bottom line is we do everything we can to get out of the way of the zeolite. That's why there's no other ingredients in there, right? We just want to be very straightforward, present this to the body in a way that biologically can be recognized, it can do its work. And, we also are conscious of the fact that heavy metal exposure is ongoing, right? And so whatever you do, we believe develop habits that can be done day after day, month after month, year after year, so you can maintain the rigors of trying to understand, help your body manage a modern world. And so all those things are critical, and I appreciate you sharing them.
So one of the things that I get a lot of questions about when I'm talking with people about detoxification and using zeolite is like, how often should I take it? How much should I take? And when should I take it? In doing extensive research on this, interviewing top medical doctors, top researchers who are in the holistic and integrative fields that are helping patients to heal all kinds of chronic ailments. One of the things that's come up again and again is if you're taking something like a binder, like a heavy metal binder like zeolite, is to take it between an hour to 2 hours away from any other supplements or any other food, because it can also bind to those minerals in your food or to those supplements, right? And so one of the things that I tell people when they're taking something like a zeolite is take it as your last thing before bed, at least an hour, hour and a half away from your other supplements or food. So you could take whatever supplements you're taking, let's say at 8 o'clock, and then at 9:30, right before you get into bed, you can just take the zeolite and go to bed. Do you have, I know on the bottle it says 4 sprays 3 times a day. Is that, why do you have that label on the bottle as kind of the general recommendations? And then number 2, can people take 12 sprays at night one time instead of 3 times throughout the day? Or can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So what I tell people is if you're the type of person you just can't develop a habit of using something 3 times a day, right? Just the way your life is, the way your schedule is, it's just not going to happen. And so the best you can do is muster up the energy to use it once a day, then use it once a day, right? That's just fine. What's preferred though is that it's circulating your body periodically throughout the day. It has, because of just your renal function and the biology of the body, it's going to stay on point for about a 4 to 6 hour period of time. And so if you did it early in the morning, you've got a wave of activity there, right? That it's going to be in the body during the midday, and then in the evening hours, you kind of gave yourself as much coverage as you can, so it doesn't build up and it doesn't stay within the body. So this is why we prefer people to spread it out, because your exposure is sort of spread out, right? It's just sort of constant outside of what you might consume from a food standpoint, and so that's where that comes from. And because this is nano-sized, it doesn't have propensity to bind with electrolytes or other good minerals and things that you need in your body. There are, because of sizing and other things with other types of zeolites, those are concerns that people have. But in this case, we have no reason to believe that it's going to lower a person's electrolyte level or those types of things. And so the biggest thing is I prefer they use it outside of mealtime, just so it's pretty straightforward how it's being consumed and what it's going to do in the body. But if a person only remembers at mealtime, you're still going to get some benefit. It just may not be as perfect if you were separated by a couple hours from the mealtime. So it has some flexibility in that regard, but the frequency is preferred.
Got it. Beautiful. Well, again, for everyone tuning in, we've been able to get a really special discount for you from Eddie and from his team, where you guys can actually try this for yourself. I highly recommend it. There's a link below this video in the description. You can click that link. It'll take you to the page. It has all the information. Huge discount for you. And it's something that I'm using for myself. My wife is using. My children are using it. I think with our exposure to all these heavy metals from even the fish. If you're eating fish, for example, we know that fish are so polluted with mercury and other heavy metals now. The water and the air you breathe, even in the food, that's so exposed with so many heavy metals that taking something like this, even if you don't take this zeolite, taking a zeolite that is a pure source from the earth, that's not synthetic, that doesn't have other additives and other ingredients in it, is what I highly recommend that people are doing if you want to help improve and optimize your health and the function of your body. So I recommend this one. You can get it at the link below. But whether you get this or not, I encourage you to take a product like this. And I think that you will feel better and see the difference as you're taking this ongoing. So yeah. Eddie, thank you so much for taking the time today. Thank you for your dedication to helping bring this important information and these important products to the world. I think we need more of it. And I just appreciate you for doing this. So thank you so much.
Hey, Nathan, it's been a real pleasure and excited to see your audience's reaction and some of the stories and reviews they share with us.
Fantastic. Well, thanks again. And thank you all so much. I wish you all ultimate health and happiness. Go ahead and grab your bottle of Pure Body Extra today at the link below, and let me know what you think of it. Thanks so much. Take care.